Mr. Porter,
Here.
Mr. Bonner,
Here.
Ms. Corzine,
Present.
Mr. Wade.
Here.
This meeting is being live streamed and recorded by audio tape. Adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda for May 17th?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Porter,
Here. Yes.
Mr. Bonner,
Yes.
Ms. Corzine,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Welcome to visitors to this and all board meetings. The board desires citizens of the district to attend its meetings so that they may become better acquainted with the operations and programs of the schools, and so that the board may have an opportunity to hear the wishes and ideas of the public. All meetings of the board are open to the public and the media. Do we have anyone who wanted to speak?
I did not receive any notices.
Okay, thank you. Recognitions and presentations. Alyssa's on.
So I gave you a handout, just some spreadsheets of kind of what's been going on so far in the hiring process this school year. I have it broken down by building just to give you a little bit of a picture of where we are. You can see Mount Logan is the first part on that spreadsheet. We are adding one position this year down there for, we're opening an early fives preschool classroom. And we do not have that filled yet. We have made an offer on that position, but we have not heard back whether or not she's going to accept. So we are still waiting on that piece. In primary school so far, we only have one retirement and one new hire, which we hired, I believe, the last board meeting there. On to the next page, at the intermediate school, we have had some turnover there through retirements and transfers. So just, you can kind of take a look at where we are. We have one position that we have made an offer on, but not currently filled. It's not on this agenda yet. And at the middle school, you can kind of see exactly where we are there. Still looking for a science teacher. We have some interviews set up next week for that position. Actually, we have a science position in the middle school and the high school this year. So those are pretty big fills that we're looking at and doing those interviews next week as well. On to the high school, that is by far our biggest transition in terms of staffing this year. We have officially filled a couple of these, and actually, I believe there were some updates to the agenda since I've done this spreadsheet. So I believe we have the ELA position filled and potentially another one. I'm not sure what actually got put on the agenda today. But you can see kind of the teachers who are retiring or resigning and where we need to still fill. Our biggest concern there is high school math. We have one applicant so far for that position. So that's pretty par for the course. Talked to Minnesota, they had a math position as well. They had 2 applicants for theirs. I said, please send over. Whoever you don't hire, we'll gladly interview. So that's a tough position to fill, and that's pretty common just across the area. In general, we are replacing the 7-12 literacy coach for the district. That was Jessica Orr, who is going to be new assistant principal at CIS, and Lisa Clark is transitioning into that job, which would be fantastic. She's a really good hire there. And we did hire a speech and language pathologist, which replaces the teletherapy we were putting in place for Mount Logan. Actually, that was itinerant, is that correct? Debbie? Mostly.
And that wasn't full year last year, that was.
That is not. Connie and I were looking at numbers there. I'm not sure that's totally accurate for the school year,
I would say no.
in terms of what that cost us, but.
It's $75 an hour to use this teletherapy.
So we'll update that spreadsheet as when we finish out the fiscal year to really look at the numbers and see what that cost was for us versus what it cost to hire our own in-house. Just looking at the last page on the spreadsheet, I just try to put some statistics and analytics that may be relevant to you or conversations you have. We have about an average of 6 candidates, obviously not that math position, but 6 candidates per certified position that apply with us. Not everyone finishes that process, and truthfully, we've had quite a few candidates back out because they were offered positions before we got to them. So the field is very tight, and people are really trying to get candidates and teachers in the door quickly this year. For classified positions, it's a little less. We get about 5. Minority certified candidates that we have interviewed so far, we've had 2 who've made 1 offer. That person has not yet agreed to take the position, but that's
You
what we
have
are.
2 minority applications.
Well, we have 2 that we have interviewed. I can't tell by an
Okay, that's what I
application
was-
whether or not, yes. So 2 that we have interviewed and 1 that we have offered to. We still have some classified positions that we're filling. I don't know if you filled the custodial job
Not
yet.
yet, but we're close.
Yep, so we still have that out there. We have 3 paraprofessionals that we need to fill, actually 2 paraprofessionals. One we are changing to a nurse aide down at Mount Logan. Rose Gabrick is retiring. We are replacing that paraprofessional aide with a nurse aide position just to meet some of the medical needs of the students down there in that building. But there's also just, for your understanding, some potential other positions we're looking at. We are doing kind of an audit of our aides in the buildings, what they are doing. Do we need to add more? Do we have, the right number based on what our needs are, particularly in the primary school and intermediate school? So we're going to be looking at that. Obviously, our kindergarten registration numbers may require us to hire more staff. Right now, we are at 8 kindergarten teachers. I don't believe the registration number has changed much in the last month. We're still right around 100 students registered. Likely, that's half of what it will be once August 13th
That's
comes
not
around.
atypical of this time of year.
It is.
They wait till August.
We are hopeful, and we're going to try to do a campaign to really push people to come and register their kindergarten students so we can be more prepared staffing wise when the school year starts. But right now, we're at 100 kids and 8 teachers, which obviously is plenty for the moment. We are reviewing permanent substitute positions. I believe the agenda today has 4 permanent sub positions on there, which is typical. However, we do not have one currently at the primary school. Last school year, we moved the permanent substitute into a kindergarten position, which was a really good move, great teacher into there, but we have not replaced that in terms of that permanent sub. We're really looking to see what our numbers are going to be, what our needs are going to be there. So, but just FYI, that may be another position we're looking to fill. Another area of focus, just lastly, that we're going to take a look at this summer is really our classified pay rates, particularly for subbing. Right now, a sub aide makes $12.50 an hour. I can tell you we are short sub aides every single day. It is very hard to get people to commit to come in and work with kids all day long for $12.50 an hour, especially when you can go to McDonald's for starting at 15.
What's the sub-custodian rate?
It is 13.
Yeah, it's
13. Sorry, I did not have that written down, but it's 13. Same thing. And truthfully, as soon as we get somebody who's a really good sub, we end up hiring them because we have a need to fill, which is great for us, but it makes our sub list there for classified staff very small and very tight. And then we end up daily with positions that we don't have a sub for. So that's something we're going to take a closer look at this summer. Just really kind of do a study. What are other people in the area doing? What are they paying for those positions, and see if we need to adjust them.
Are we reevaluating the sub-teacher rate at all?
Right, what's the sub-teacher rate?
So currently it's $20 an hour at $145 a day. We pay the highest in the area,
145 a day?
$145 a day, yes. I will tell you,
Pretty
in
good.
looking at
That's not
some
bad.
other schools, again, we pay the highest in the area, but there are, some other places that do incentives for retired teachers of the district. They'll pay, for example, there's a district that pays $150 for anybody who comes in, but if you're a retired teacher from the district, they pay you $165, which those would be great substitutes. People who have retired, we know what they can do and can handle a classroom. So there might be other things we want to look at.
We are still everyday short subs, and so
Every
what that
single-
means
and
is
we had
we're pulling
A lot of substitutes.
ISs and reading specialists from their jobs to work with kids in the classrooms, and they get very frustrated and that's a lot of things. So we probably, we need to talk about that with them.
Do you still take teachers from the planning period to cover classes?
Sometimes we
Occasionally,
do,
yes.
and they get paid
They
for
get
that.
paid.
Right, that ends up cost because they get a higher hourly rate.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Whatever we
And
can
they-
do to get more subs is really gonna be a good move.
Yeah, I think the pay is a big part of it.
Well,
It really is.
Yeah, I know Debbie and I, we've talked about that with custodians, and that really needs to be looked at.
Yes, this, and the sub aids is a big deal.
It's- It is somewhat apples and oranges, but we raised our seasonal pay across the board at the Parks and Rec for just about everybody, $2 an hour, guards and everybody. And it's made a
And
tremendous,
it's made a difference.
it's $2, and it's made a tremendous difference for us,
Mhm.
particularly at the pool.
Thank you.
So you think maybe in August when we come back, you might have some recommendations, maybe?
Probably before that, but yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I don't-
Anything else, Alyssa?
Nice
That's
job.
all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Mr. Bonner, legislative update?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Do you mind if I give an update?
Oh, sure, go ahead, Glenn.
So the House has the governor's budget, was sent to the House for voting and testimony, and the House sent Bill 33 over, and up on the screen, you'll see a few bullet points. I think I emailed all of this to you. The funding for disadvantaged pupil, which is economically disadvantaged, it will be phased in at the same year rates of 3 and 4 of the Fair School Funding Formula, which means at 50 and 67%. Funding for assessments of study for the needs of economically disadvantaged students, which is huge. I think that's a $500,000 funded study by the state to, first of all, how do you identify those kids? Because a lot of schools are on CEP, which is community eligibility for free school and lunch, which they think skews the number of how students are identified. And what does it actually cost in addition to base cost for a kid that's economically disadvantaged to be educated, meaning their wraparound services and their social emotional supports? How much additionally does that cost you in a year? Funding for student wellness and success funds, which that's just a continuance, but it's built in to the base cost as well. The requirements on ODE to provide reimbursements for free breakfast and lunch for all students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So that would be huge. So anybody that's not on CEP that just gets a reduced lunch would then automatically be bumped to a free lunch in districts that do not provide free lunch and breakfast to every student. Permanent implementation of the pilot program for dropout prevention and recovery. Removal of the school resource officer funding from outside of the budget that brings it in the budget. And the main reason for that is in the governor's proposal, an SRO was specific to peace officers, which means you have to be sanctioned through a police station or sheriff's office. And some districts actually hire security companies and not officers. So this would allow them to continue to do so and receive that and still get that funding. There's lots of other bullet points in here, but the main bullet point is that House Bill 33, instead of using 2018 salary cost for students for the inputs on the formula side, it brings up to date 22. So more current salaries when they're looking at the average. So every year, the tax valuations in our local communities are updated, whether it's a reappraisal value or just fluctuation in sales. And if it's updated every year, the salary side should be updated every year. And when that doesn't happen, we're going to talk about that more in a minute. It skews the side. So it would continuously reduce the state share and raise the local share, which is good for everybody. And it's not fair. So it would balance the scale and keep those percentages the same. And that's the main thing we want to focus on, and what the Fair School Funding Work Group is pushing is to keep the 22 inputs and to keep the study for economically disadvantaged.
Thank you.
It's currently in the Senate, it's currently in the Senate, and by the 20th, the Senate will release their version.
Anything else? Pickaway Russ Career and Technology Center update, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I'll be participating tomorrow night in graduation ceremonies at Pickaway Ross. It starts at 7 o'clock at the VA Stadium, and they'll be graduating about 350 students.
Very good. Thank you. Next is board action. The David Mead Massey Trust Grant is requesting the board to pass a resolution giving permission to apply for the David Mead Massey grant funds to use toward the new playground at Mount Logan. And all of that information was on the B drive for you to see prior to the meeting. Do I have a motion for this board action?
I'll motion.
Mr. Porter, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bonner, any discussion? Roll, please.
Ms. Corzine,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Bonner.
Yes.
Treasurer reports and recommendations. Mrs. Zaylor?
Yes, so we had the minutes attached for the final meeting, the financial reports were all attached to the B drive. The 5-year forecast was attached to the B drive. We're going to discuss that a little bit more in a minute. The approval to run set valve for year-end closing, and approval to transfer from National Honor Society William Gozy for their scholarship, from the improvement to the bond for the bond payment. And general fund transfers to the termination benefit fund and the permanent improvement for athletics transfer. I want to discuss that with you guys, and we're going to go over that a little bit more in the 5-year forecast, but we need to make sure now when we're having years that are a little bit better that we are transferring that money for the causes that you all have set that are important. We are going to have to replace the turf, and that money's going to have to come from somewhere. So I suggest every year that we have a good year, we move money to that, as well as to the termination benefit fund, because you're going to have big swings in experienced teachers resigning or retiring, and when they do, they get a severance payment for those sick days. Well, right now, we might only have a couple of years, but in a few years, we might have a mass exodus, and if we don't have the money reserved to pay those severance, we're going to be in a bad spot. So every year, if we make a transfer payment over there, it'll be our little savings account, so when we have our teachers retire, it doesn't hurt us, and it specifically takes that and reserves it. It takes it out of the general fund. That means it can't be used against us for negotiations, and we are protecting the teachers and the classified unions severance payouts that we guarantee in the contract we will do. So my recommendation on the 5-year forecast is going to be $100,000 to each of those funds. We have, I would like to discuss, we have a board policy, which I put in the B drive for school and community relations. We have a policy that states that, for organizations to use our name, we have requirements that they meet all state and federal laws and that they provide the superintendent with those items. With COVID, we have to stop using that as an excuse to not collect things and require people to turn things in. And if we are not going to ask that of these organizations, we need to update the policy. Other than that, I would ask that you pass a resolution and approve for me to ask for those reports every year. We have approval of purchase order. We have a couple of contracts on here for Meta Tech Services. Switching to Meta for our tech services, we'll have the same people. They will be afforded a raise and benefits, and we will still save $12,000. We were being charged a lot more than what individuals were being paid on payroll.
Do we have 2 or 3 tips?
Yeah. 2. Yeah. So also the VoIP agreement with Meta Solutions is just our phone system, switching it from Rebecca to Meta. This ensures that we have all of our services in one place, that we get the same type of service for everything in the district. And again, that just transfers at the cost of the equipment we're using. And approval to move forward with the Mount Logan renovations. I have Aaron and Larry here. We asked for 3 quotes. We received 2, one company, their statement was they are going to pass on the bidding of this project. At this time, they are the company that is going to be doing the lights. So I think they felt like they were pretty tied up. So both of the bids that we received quoted us prevailing wage. We did get them to do that. And so we do have some funds in ESSER that will allow us the ability to bring that building up to better standards for preschool. And they will use prevailing wage and use certified payroll reports to the district so that we meet all audit requirements. And then cyber property liability and fleet insurance is been quoted. It's the same company we used to. We have an increase in coverage for all of our buildings, increased the value of $42 million. And I think our premium only went up maybe $8,000. And so I felt like that was a pretty good rate. So we'll go ahead and ask for approval of that to begin on 7/1. And I do have a salary schedule approval for the new position of marketing and communications director. So I'm going to send these around. This will be a hard copy for you for the 5-year forecast. There is a blanket overview. I'm going to put it up on the screen. So as you heard me talk about, there's controversy right now with the governor's proposal and the House's proposal. The governor used 2018 and the House is proposing 2022. That's going to make a significant swing for Chillicothe City Schools, I'll be honest with you. I've spent the last 3 days debating on which version I was going to put forth in front of you. I'm going to use the 22 cost. I've been listening to Senate testimony. I've been listening to groups that they're advocating for schools. Believe it or not, even community schools and charter schools are advocating for the 22 inputs. Without it, it's not fair. And that's what that funding model represents. It's a fair school funding plan. It's fair for students, it's fair for staff, it's fair for community, and it's fair for taxpayers. So, as you can see in this first graph here, this is based on 2018 costs. I'll make this a little bigger. In fiscal year 27, we still end the year with $4 million of cash balance, which is about a 30-day cash balance for this district in 1 month. That's about how much we spend a month, sometimes more than that. You can see that in year 5 in 2027, we are deficit spending $2.2 million. Every assumption in both scenarios that I ran is consistent. They are the same. It is bringing everybody back from ESSER funding. It's creating a marketing position. It's creating an early fives class. So we don't lose any services with this model, on either model that I forecasted. The main swing is going to be state funding. This is a picture of cash balance. This is what it looks like. You can see that it's going to be a steady decline. We were kicking the road, with rewriting the ESSER grant. I told you we were going to kick that thought of running the levy down the road. In year 5, if the 28 inputs stay, we're going to get closer to talking about that. But we're not right now. For the foreseeable future, we are okay the way we are with all programs, permanent subs, reading specialists, coaches, everything staying in place to offset, in our preschool program staying at the same level. We are not changing what we're providing to our students. You can see there's just a couple of pictures that reflect the gradual change from 2018 all the way to 2027. The yellow line represents the cash balance. You can see that we were on a pretty negative downhill swing until ESSER funding came around, helped us out a little bit. These numbers right here represent total pupil-based costs for Chillicothe. And again, with the Fair School Funding Plan, this number is different for every single district. No one is the same because you use your own numbers, you use your own tax valuations, you use your own income in your community not you versus the state. It's Chillicothe versus Chillicothe. So our per pupil base cost is $72.38. Well, with 2018 input stay in there, our base cost changes by $1 in 2027. $1. It's just, that's not feasible. To me, that's not feasible. The state has the money. You know, that's another reason. The state has a surplus. It ended in a huge surplus. It's running on surplus right now. It's running on revenues in addition to their estimates right now. There's no way that they can look the public in the eye and not keep the 22 inputs. So the next graph is going to be the 22 inputs. You can see in year 2027, our cash balance, the way things are right now, adding the 2 positions, bringing everybody back, rises to 15 million in 2027. Now, with that money, what can Chillicothe do? That's the question we're all going to be asking ourselves this summer. And I'm a firm believer and wholeheartedly that come June 30th, this is the reality we're going to be looking at. Meaning we can start looking at class sizes, additional supports, additional social emotional speech, social workers, special ed. I mean, we are going to be looking at, this is where you want to be. There are districts that are not going to see this. They are on guarantees. They're going to be looking at, how do I start dealing with the fact I'm not getting any more money? Things that we've had to deal with for a long time. It's where it's about to flip. Okay? I do, again, will say this will have to be entered with caution. By the time we start negotiating in the fall, the budget will be released. If I'm wrong, then we will release an updated forecast. Either way, if I flipped it the other way, we're going to do an updated forecast regardless. And this is my projection, and I firmly believe with everything that I'm hearing, this is what's going to stay. Okay, again, all this is based on our enrollment. We are putting the marketing in place to help us with that. We are going to bring back to this district what Chillicothe is all about. And we're going to start promoting all of the good things about Chillicothe. We're going to change the view of Chillicothe. And now we have the funds to put our ideas in place.
So you'll know the answer to this one.
June. The cash balance, now with this, you can see the uphill swing. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to stay that way, because the goal is, if this changes, we're going to put new staff in place. We're probably going to put new programs in place. Again, that's going to increase all the costs that I'm predicting. That's going to change that number. Just a better picture of what that cash balance is going to look like. And you can see the base cost changes from 72.38 to 86.88. And it maintains the balance of the state and local share. If it goes the other way, we flip, and the local share becomes higher than the state share. And with 100% economic disadvantaged pupil ratio, that should not be the case. So with all of that discussion,
Yeah, I was trying, when you're using the 2018 base cost, we start, deficit spending in 25?
yes.
So what is the base cost with when we're projecting that we won't ever, or at least not never, but we won't even be in deficit spending till 27? We'll still be positive. How is that?
That's if the House Bill.
If the
House
House Bill
bill.
33
If
passes,
it passes?
it puts 22 salaries in the budget, meaning that's how they develop base cost. So base cost would rise because it would cost more. The
Right.
salaries right now they're using FY18, which is 4 years ago, even 5 years ago, even today. If that stays at 18, then you're looking at 2 more years with 18 salaries, and you've had 5, 6, 7 years worth of salary growth across the state.
Mhm.
When you use those inflated numbers, it's gonna increase the cost. So it actually paints the real picture. That's why I say that's what's fair. If you're not using current numbers and you're using old numbers, of course you're gonna hold the cost down. But with inflation of everything else, how can they not update it? I mean, gas costs more. All the supplies we purchase is more. We've seen a lot of inflation. And again, if they leave it at 18, we see $1 increase, basically over 5 years. That doesn't pay for an increase by gallon of gas for a whole year. So that's why I firmly believe with the state that our position that their state is in, with such a high revenue increase, I don't think they can stand in front of the public and say no to education, to the future, when they're pushing our future with Intel, Amazon, and all of those companies that they're up there doing. They just can't do that. I mean, they're promoting our education system right now through these companies to bring the workforce to Ohio. They're promoting us as being right in the center. We're a central location to be driving trucks out of here. We are the next workforce state. Well, if they're gonna do that, they're gonna have to supply the education for those kids to have jobs.
And we'll know when this passes or doesn't pass by August?
June.
We'll know by the 27th of this month, so, the Senate will have to release their version. They're still hearing testimony. Like I said, I spent the last 3 days catching up on testimony. Everybody is in support of the 22 inputs. And they're also calling, I had one lady yesterday I listened to, and I wanted to stand up and applaud for her. She said, you're holding us accountable. We're financially accountable. She brought out the Sunshine Law. She brought out all of these things, and she said, here's what I have to be accountable for as a treasurer. My superintendent has to be accountable academically to this report card. She said, if anybody, I don't mind that you fund them, but if you're going to fund them with public dollars, then they need to be held to the same accountability standards as we are.
In 23, our per pupil cost total was 7,238.
That's what our base cost is. That's not what we spend.
Okay, that's an awful low to me.
It is, but that's not what we spend.
Okay,
Even though they are saying, based on your numbers and based on the funding formula, this is what your base cost is. You have a state share, which is $4,169. That's what the state is gonna give us for a student.
mm-hmm,
We pick up the difference and then some,
and then some, all
and
right.
then some. 'Cause I could look at it, but I think we spent it was over $9,000 per pupil last year. So
Right.
you add a couple more $1,000s to that is what we spent.
Which is still
Still fairly
fairly
low.
low, it's still
Which
fairly
means
low.
we are doing more with less. We are, in this district, we are doing more with less.
That's a good cost if we can keep it there. I agree with that, certainly. But the
And we
40,
do have teacher negotiations next fall.
And this will be updated in November, so by the time we start with those, we will know actual numbers and what we're doing. And I also may mention that I did build in here, the step increment percentage and, what I felt was a moderate raise, for 24 through 27. So that is reflected in here.
that's good, that's what we'll learn. But is the contract good with teachers through 24?
Well, what we did was typically go 3-year contracts. So we have a 2-year contract, and what we agreed on was we would reopen back up just salaries and some contract language, just a couple. So the question will be, do we start a whole new 3-year and then, or do we just do another 1 year and then go back up? We'd prefer just to do another 3 year because doing contract negotiations every year is not good. So we're gonna start in October, but yeah, teachers, we agreed to a 2-year just because the financial situation at that time, they were good enough to agree to that. So we reopened back up here in the fall.
Great.
And then the only other thing I'll add is that I was required, by law this year, treasurers are required to put, you're always required to do assumptions, but you had to tell how you were predicting this year. I did include in the back the comparisons that you see on this board and what version of the House bill that I used. And I blatantly stated in here, this is with 22 inputs, and this is keeping everything the same with a couple of additions, and what we could do with the extra fund balance we have. So they will read that, we were required to do so.
Thank you. I think that was a very good
Good job,
explanation.
Claudia.
So with that, I would like to ask for your approval for A through L.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer reports and recommendations?
I'll
A through
motion.
L.
I'll motion.
Is there a second? I'll make that second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just on those received bids, Larry, is it like one for electric and one's for? No,
It's all, it's a package.
it's just a package deal. That's all. I have.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll, please.
Ms. Corzine,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Bonner.
Yes.
Superintendent recommendations, Ms. Swinehart?
Okay, let's recommend A through G, and I just want to point out that on the, in the student handbook, this year, next year, we are going to no cell phones. You can bring a cell phone to school, it has to stay in your locker.
So we're going back to lockers
Yeah,
too.
just in your locker. This will probably cause some angst for some people. But then if you violate that, there is a discipline letter for that, okay? And we think it's best at this point to do that. Just because kids are videotaping things in the hallways and they're throwing out on social media, and it's just
I still
out of control.
think we go one step farther, ban them from the schools. I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about that, Liz brought that up a few years ago, then kind of COVID hit and we got, I think it's a good step. I would do it. I think enforcing it's going to be hard, and how much I would just ban them from the schools. I mean, we went to school 200 years worth of schooling with no one going to school with a cell phone. I mean,
I think, and I don't disagree, I think the thing is policing that, you know,
Yeah.
that's the part. So if we start in the classrooms, hallways, cafeterias, gyms,
Yeah.
any of those spots.
The only place they can be is in their
In their
lockers.
lockers,
So-
or obviously their cars. So we'll put out prior to school starting, I'll send out a letter that highlights those things in there, because, you know, obviously we're back to no hoodies, no PJs, because we wear PJ pants here. No slippers, those kind of things. So we're gonna re-highlight before August starts up, what the handbook says for parents, so they're very clear about that.
So then we have to rely on our staff to
Yes, and
enforce that
we
too.
talked about that with the admin, that they've got to be consistent, even though it's uncomfortable sometimes. So I did want to know that's in there, just in case you get some phone calls
I appreciate that.
come August.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that come, and hopefully it doesn't cause us too much of an issue.
I mean, there's no real academic benefit for a student having a cell phone.
Not since they have Chromebooks, yeah.
There's no, you're right, you have your own phone, but
Yeah.
you don't need a cell phone. That's good. Thank you, Debbie.
And then obviously graduation is Friday night. Be over at the intermediate at 7. Rain date is Sunday night.
Oh.
So if
Oh.
it rains, we'll go to
It's going to
Sunday.
rain Friday.
I know.
We're not going to do
No, it's outside.
it just back it up till Sunday.
It's too late to go down that gym.
It's too late to.
Yeah, so the backup date is Sunday. Matt really wants to try to make it happen Friday night, so he's, you know.
I think it's called off now as of this morning.
Yeah, I think you're.
No rain now, Friday.
Oh, they
Yeah,
said-
I think it's looking better.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So
What
Friday
time do
night
you
at
want
7.
What time do you want to say?
They start at 7?
Well, be at the
7:30.
CIS at 7.
Yeah, 6:50 to 7.
He's there a little bit
A
before.
little bit early, yeah.
But it does start at 7.
7:30.
Okay, that's what I thought. 7.
7:30, yeah. But we'll get your pin and all that stuff at 7.
All right, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's it then? Okay.
That is motivation to get it through quickly.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations?
I'll make that much. I'll send it.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Bonner,
Yeah.
Ms. Corzine,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Any discussion or informational items? Board member comments? Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. It was a good early meeting.